And welcome to Popcorn, where we tell you what's happening in the pop culture. And there's something happening on TV right now called The Slap, in which my friend Zachary Quinto, our guest here today, just slaps the crap out of a 5-year-old. You know, now he's played serial killers and he's played mean people before, but I think he's never really gotten so many people pissed off at him as The Slap has. So welcome, it's good to be hated.
Thanks, it's good to be back, first of all. Before it's good to be hated, it's good to be back. But yeah, it is an interesting space to occupy in a narrative storytelling world, to play the antagonist, which I've now had the opportunity to do a number of times, to varying degrees of evil. But you know, for me, in a lot of ways, this is kind of the most evil character that I've played, because the other ones had the excuse.
That's saying something.
It is saying something.
You know, yeah.
Because he's the most human, right? The other characters that I've played have existed in these heightened worlds of stylized narrative, whether it was Heroes, where it was a supernatural world, or American Horror Story, it was a very horror genre kind of world. But this is a character who lives in our world and still manages to be really ruthless and really unabashed about his aggression. So that was something very interesting for me.
Well, tell us a little bit about what The Slap is.
The story is 8 episodes, so it's a limited miniseries on NBC. And the first episode takes place at this barbecue. It's being thrown for Peter Sarsgaard's character, who's turning 40 years old, and the extended family and friends are all invited. And Peter Sarsgaard's character's wife, played by Tandy Newton, has a best friend whose son is a little bit of a terror and wreaking havoc through the party. And things escalate between the adults, my character, and the child's character's parents don't get along. And so there's a bit of escalation in that relationship. And then the kid kind of has a tantrum. He starts swinging a bat at my character Harry's son. And it's at that point that Harry decides to intervene, and one thing leads to another, and he slaps the kid in the face.
Saying, yeah? Why are you swinging the bat at Rocco like that?
So knowing how you like to play things for real, so did you just like haul off and whack this poor little kid? Of course not. You said that with the evilest grin I've ever seen.
No.
What did you do?
Sweet
Zach,
little Dylan, who
sweet
plays
little
Hugo.
Dylan.
We worked it out, and he was like such a pro. I was actually really impressed by all the kids on the show, how professional they were, how they were able to fully immerse themselves in the emotional stakes of this world, and then you know, as soon as they call cut, they're over there playing baseball or hanging out or looking at the night. I mean, they were just really remarkable.
Did you have that at home?
Yeah.
I know you lost your dad when you were just 7.
Young.
Yeah.
But I did, even before he shuffled off the mortal coil, but also, you know, throughout my early teens, you know, 10, 11 years old, there was an implement in our house called the stick.
Oh, I had the ruler.
You had the ruler. It was basically, it was a bigger ruler. We had it was a big stick that
like
lived above the refrigerator.
Really?
Yeah, and we all knew it was there, and it was definitely threatened upon us.
But it didn't happen.
Sometimes.
This is you and your brother.
Me and my brother, yeah. Sometimes we get the stick on our knuckles. Sometimes we get the stick on the butt. Wow. But not often.
Not often.
You know, I grew up in a very loving household that was very nurturing and supportive of both me and my brother. But there were rules, and the rules were important, and if the rules were broken, there were consequences, and sometimes those consequences were corporal punishment.
I remember when you were here last, and we were talking about the year you came out in 2011. But I never asked you at the time, has this cost you anything by doing it? Has this had an effect?
If it has, then it's then I don't know about it, if that makes sense. I've never been busier. I've been working in many different ways as an actor, as a producer, on stage, on film, and television. I think that I would say the answer to that is no, although if the answer was yes, then I think it would just be about the kind of work I was doing rather than whether or not I was still working, if that makes sense.
But in terms of the work that you do, you're somebody to me who has an ideal kind of career. You can do this TV series, you can make movies, you can do the Glass Menagerie on Broadway. I don't see anything sort of holding you back.
I think the world in which sexuality and homosexuality in particular, when it's attributed to actors, I think the world in which that's actually an issue is the studio world, right? I think it's the world that's feeding, middle America, mass feeding our culture, these huge tentpole movies that, for whatever reason, I feel like
What do you know of those, Star Trek?
What do I know of those?
Yeah.
It's true, but I wasn't out yet when I got that job, and so I don't know that it would have made a difference. That's what I mean. There's no way for me to tell. What I do know is that I've never been more fulfilled in my work right now, but I've also never been more fulfilled in my life. And that part of it, no matter what I was doing work-wise, that part of it wouldn't have been possible had I not taken that step. And that's ultimately the only thing that matters. I love my work. I want to continue working in as many different ways as I can. But that work will never be fulfilling to the degree that a fully integrated life can be. And that's the thing that I was in more pursuit of than being, whatever this is in the world when I made that decision.
But what is happening in you after the slap? What are we going to see you doing?
I have a few episodes of Girls this season that are coming up, so that's something that'll be happening soon. The movie that I did with Franco that was just at Sundance and Berlinale, I saw you there for that. I have a Fox film called Agent 47 coming out later this year.
But isn't there another Star Trek?
And then another Star Trek after all that stuff.
So you and Leonard Nimoy, that was a real relationship.
I didn't ever expect that he and I would become so close, but our relationship is something that I absolutely cherish, and I just love him. Just love him. He's an amazing guy.
And he had approval of you, didn't he? In fact,
He did. Yeah.
He could have said, "Not that guy."
He could have said, "Not that guy." Luckily, he didn't, and beyond that, luckily, we just created a real. My father died when I was 7, as I said. My father would have been, had he remained living, he would have been just a couple of years younger than Leonard. So there's a real parallel for me in my relationship with Leonard, a real sort of paternal energy that passes between us.
When people ask you, like me, what about your dad? What do you remember about him? What is it?
Well, the interesting thing is that he was a very tall gentleman. He was like 6'4" and a half.
As opposed to your tininess.
Well, I'm 6'2", but
yeah.
But at the time I was tiny. So my memories of my father, whose hand was probably maybe a little bit bigger than mine, is that it could have like lifted me. I was like this giant. So I have these very indelible memories of my father's physical presence because he was such a big guy to my 7-year-old self. But he stays with me in many ways. His spirit stays with me in everything I do creatively, because he was a very creative person and he loved to explore the world through creative expression. He was a singer and he played the guitar, and he was an artist. He drew, and he was a photographer, and he was multi-talented, and so I feel like that's a big part of who I am, and I like to look at different outlets. I remember going with my dad to guitar lessons, for example, and sitting outside while he was in his lesson and sort of listening to him play the guitar. And I picked up the banjo not so long ago, and I played the banjo.
Did you bring it with you?
I didn't bring it with me today. I
Bastard.
apologize. Next time.
Yeah.
Next time I can sing and play the banjo.
And play the banjo. I really want the banjo.
But I think of my dad a lot in that regard. Like every time I open my banjo case, yeah, it reminds. He had this baby blue guitar case that I always used to be very fascinated with. Had the velvet interior, and now I have one for my banjo that reminds me. So there's like these echoes of things in my life, and I have amazing photographs that my dad took that I pull out and look at and really work to stay connected to.
That you have all that, and because you know how we always end in song.
I do.
Did you remember something that he sang? Or that you sang to him? You say he was a singer.
Yeah, he played the guitar a lot. Yeah, he would sing, "Show me the way to go home. I'm tired and I want to go to bed."
It's a banjo song.
It is. Yeah. I had a little drink about an hour ago, and it went straight to my head. Like that.
Think of that, people, when you're seeing the slap.
Yeah, right.
Like, when you're hating on this guy,
think of that.
just don't do it anymore.
Totally.
Give me that. Give me. How would you come at me for the
I just
slap?
had to do this last
I want to
interview.
see it.
Everybody wants to.
I want to be slapped.
So it's all about camera angles. So really, you'd have to kind of be somehow between me and that camera so that I could come. I never really get that more closer than that. So it's really just like that, and then it's all about how you sell it, the reaction. You know
So
what I
it's
mean?
all me
There
then.
you go, yeah. And then I come
Yeah.
from here.
And I go like
There you
that.
go. Wow. See, it's all about camera angles.
I
camera
felt it without
trickery.
the pain, which is, you
best
know,
way to
what
feel
a
it.
best thing
The best
for
way to
a
feel it.
performance to bring to us.
Totally.